things already. You are doing them already. So the exam only validates that, oh, this person knows about predictive, adaptive, hybrid, and you can manage projects, you can lead people, you see. So it's validation. Unfortunately, some people would do whatever they need to do to pass the exam without walking the talk. So my assumption and suggestion to you this evening is that whatever you are learning is to validate what you know how to do before. But if you don't know how to do it, then learn to be able to apply. Okay? So agile, hybrid, predictive, when each is the right answer, let us roll. The real question behind the question. Most candidates fail not because they don't know definitions. I've said this most of the time, multiple times. And they fail not because they are not brilliant. They are brilliant. Because some of them, or most of the people who write the PMP, they're already leading projects. So it's not because they don't know definitions, but because they misread the environment. You see, they can give you a scenario that will be so appropriate in a predictive setting, but the same scenario in adaptive will not be the same answer. So if you should miss that and you read the question and just assume it's predictive, when it's adaptive, you will get the answer wrong. So PMP exam is not asking what is agile, for instance. It's not asking what is predictive. It is asking, given this context, this scenario, this situation that we have painted to you, what mindset fits? Okay. And you have to do this in for each question, you have to answer this in 1 minute 20 seconds. That's the average time you have for one question all through the exam. If you divided 230 minutes by 180 questions, you have 1.20. So for predictive, you by now that it has high certainty. Why it has high certainty is you know the end from the beginning. That is why we say that predictive is plan driven. You plan right from the beginning of the project, and it has stable scope. For you to plan, it means you have a scope that you plan for. Then it has defined requirements, because when you start, you are creating a project management plan. And part of what you do is to plan scope. How do you plan scope? You collect requirements from identified stakeholders. Then you are able to plan the scope. Then from there, you are able to create your WBS, the work breakdown structure. Then from there, you are able to break the work packages down into their respective activities. And then you estimate time, cost, and then identify risk, quality, and all that. So the requirements are defined. You know what you are going to do almost right at the beginning. Then there's low change tolerance, because for every change, it has to go through the change control board. You would have put in place a change control board at the beginning of the project. Usually, they are made up of people that can make decision on, okay, it's okay, we don't mind. We can add $2 million to the budget. That's fine. If this change request is accepted, we'll give you 6 more months to the schedule or the timeline. These are people that can make decisions. However, for predictive, there's low change tolerance because it has to go through this process. And then there is heavy compliance or regulation. You have to comply, follow this and all that. So that is how I can explain what predictive is to you. Now, when it's agile, it's high uncertainty. You can start a project. The sponsor or the customer have idea what he or she wants, but not details. And as you deliver iteration per iteration, remember, a release is made up of multiple iterations. It could be 3 iterations or 4 iterations. So at the end of every iteration, you may not have a service or a product to send to your stakeholders or users. Mm? But and at the end of every iteration, you delivered some value. All right. And when you're having your review with the product owner and the customer may change his or her mind. And how is the change of mind in the customer captured? It's captured through the product backlog. All right. So agile methodology or environment is highly uncertain, and the requirements are evolving. So the customer says, okay, this is what I want next. No, that's not what I want, or change it this way. And that is reflected in the product backlog. And there's frequent feedback. That is what happens with the product backlog, the end of iteration, during review, during retrospective, you know, daily stand-up meeting, and all that. There's fast value delivery. In fact, if you remember the principles of Agile, it says that you deliver value early and in a consistent manner. So value is delivered at, if you remember, minimum viable products or minimum business increments, you give a bit, then the customer can embrace what you are working on, and then you keep increasing the value. And one of the examples that I use often is WhatsApp. When WhatsApp first came, for those millennial here, you know that all that we could do was to send text, chat, and we were so happy because we could do that via data instead of airtime. Then you were there, somebody will ask you, hey, have you updated your WhatsApp? Why? No, I have not. Oh, when updated? Now we can make call. Oh, really? We can make call. Oh, we can make when update. We can do conference call. Oh, we can create group. Oh, it was 256. Hey, have you updated? Now it's no longer 256. It's 512. You can put about 512 people in the same group. Oh, really? Hey, now have you updated? Now it's 1,000 plus. So the value was first delivered quickly to us by just sending charts. And then iteration or release after release, value keeps increasing. That is what we meant by value is favored above documentation. Okay. It doesn't mean there's no documentation in Agile. Sometimes people miss that there's documentation, but it's not as intense as predictive. All right. And then high stakeholder engagement. So when your customer and the product owner comes to your review meeting and you are demonstrating what you have done and they are giving you feedback, this is not what I want, this is not how I want it. Can we look at it differently? You know, that is having constant engagement with the stakeholder. Okay. Now for hybrid, it's a mixed certainty. You have uh, a bit of both predictive and agile. So you will have portion that you can plan, and then you have portion that you have to do iteratively. So some define scope, some evolving components. You need to know which part of the project is evolving and which has defined scope. But this is one of the traits or characteristics of hybrid. Then there's a governance structure in hybrid, which will be for the fixed scope, for the predictive aspect of the hybrid. And then you have iterative delivery for the adaptive components of the hybrid. The choice of methodology follows the environment, not your preference. It's not like, as for me, I love working predictively. It's not about you. There are factors that determine what methodology you will use. It depends on the scope of the project. It depends on what the customer wants. It depends on what we call cadence, the frequency of value they want to receive. So it's not your preference. Okay. Now, I tell my students, when you say question, you have to, there are things you need to do quickly. There are some questions I will say in an adaptive project, you don't need to determine whether it's adaptive or predictive. They've helped you out. But some questions, they will not tell you it's adaptive or predictive. So you have to look out for things in the questions that will help you determine whether it's predictive or adaptive. And remember, I said you have about 1 minute, 20 seconds per question. So, as you are answering the question, you are also mindful about your time. I am unhappy when people finish exam and they say, I couldn't finish the questions. You know, this session that I'm having today is meant for someone that is preparing to write the PMP exam, or someone who has written the exam but failed and want to write it again. I must congratulate you if you're on this call. I failed PMP at my first sitting. I failed on my second sitting. I passed at my third sitting. Yes, but I passed. And when when I wrote and failed. I was an engineer. I had my MBA. I was managing projects. I was managing hundreds, thousands USD worth of projects across Africa. But I would say maybe overconfidence because, like, come on, I'm an engineer. What do they want to ask me? If I in the class, I was just thinking the question, the proportion that is analytical, like calculations, not even up to 5%. And when the teacher is teaching or the instructor, I'm nodding, yeah, yeah, because I felt I knew it. And when I was writing the exam too, I felt I was giving the right answers. And I've mentioned a few times that I was looking for my script. I was looking for how to ask PMI to give me my script because I felt I passed something. Maybe PMI made mistake until when I was preparing for PMP the third time, I got simulator. That is why preparing for PMP without simulator is suicidal. Not the simulator you go online and you Google and then you pick something. Please, if you're writing PMP exam, spend money, get good simulator. Okay, right. So when you see question, you need to diagnose the scenario in 30 seconds. So I came up with Jumoke's 4-question environmental diagnostic framework for you to be able to situate where does this question, what environment is this question from, and it would help you determine whether it's predictive, adaptive, or hybrid. One, there are four. One, requirement stability. If the requirement is fully defined and is unlikely to change, then it's predictive. If you read the question and say the requirement has been identified, it's predictive. If requirements are evolving, they are unclear, they are like in a discovery phase, then it's agile. If there's a core defined component of the project, and then there are components that are evolving, then it's hybrid. Okay. Then two, change frequency. If you have a situation where the change is controlled, there's formal change request, is predictive. You don't see that in hybrid. Expect changes in in adaptive. This is adaptive or agile. Expect it. And that's what the customer does with the product owner. And the product owner reflects the changes in the product backlog. And when the customer says, oh, yeah, yeah, this is all that I want, then the product owner with the customer will prioritize the product backlog. And when the product backlog is prioritized, it will now be given to the project team. Then they will pick what they can work on depending on the velocity of the team. Hmm? Now, we are still under change frequency. If the portion of the change is kind of controlled and portion of the change is adaptive, like that of agile, then it's hybrid. The third tool or how you can diagnose what scenario or what environment am I operating in? Risk type, the type of risk. If the possible risk you are looking at is on how to get the job done and it is known risk, then it's predictive, where you identify risk, you analyze, and then you come up with response at the beginning of the project. If the type of risk is technical or is based on solution that is uncertain, then it's agile. If it is mixed landscape, by now you know it's hybrid. And then the fourth way you can diagnose what scenario do you have is governance and compliance. If there is heavy documentation and regulatory gates, then it's predictive. If governance and compliance is lightweight, reflected in lightweight documentation and is iterative, meaning it's evolving or rolling wave, then it's agile. And if it is enterprise governance plus iterative teams, then it's hybrid. What I'm trying to do here is I always want to include like a cheat sheet that if you cannot read, you are so busy, you don't have time, that if you pick this, you'll be able to cover so much. If you understood what this slide is telling you, then it will be so easier for you to be able to determine environments in the scenarios that you'll be given. You know that The PMP exam is over 80% situational or scenario based, where they will paint a scenario like a story, and they will ask you as a project manager, what are we supposed to do from here, or what could have been done to prevent this, or or to solve the problem. All right. If you read a question and there's a split, there's a bit of predictive, there's a bit of adaptive, then go for hybrid. Now, I want to check whether you understood my explanation. So I will need you to drop in the comment section what you think this scenario is. A government infrastructure project with strict regulatory milestones, but software components require rapid user feedback. What scenario is this? Is it adaptive? Is it predictive? Is it um, hybrid? Please drop your comments and let me know what you think. Drop, drop, drop. Please feel free. It's okay. I see hybrid. I see a hybrid. Okay. Two people have answered. Is there any answer here? Let me clap for you. It's hybrid. It's hybrid because there's a component of compliance there, which is predictive, and there's software iteration that will be evolving, which is adaptive. So I'm happy you follow there. Now, these are errors I'm advising you to avoid. Trap one, agile bias. Some people are just biased. They feel that agile is the trending thing, is the modern thing, and therefore is the correct thing. Because if agile was not, or adaptive was not important, PMI will not change PMP and introduce agile to it. So there's that bias. Okay. The second one is sometimes we see some word and we panic, maybe because we are not familiar with those words. We panic, like Scrum. The moment you see Scrum, like, it's agile, you know. And then the third trap is ignoring organizational context. PMP question test situational alignment, not ideology. Not, sometimes um when I'm having practice questions with people preparing to write PMP, and I say this is the answer, then someone say, "Oh, no, but that one too could be correct. This one too could be correct." Is PMI is not testing could be correct. They are testing what is correct. And often all the four options are not outrightly wrong. It's just that three out of the four options are not the answer for that particular question. Okay, so this one too could be right, that one could be right, you are right, but for that question, it's only one option that is right. So if the organization is regulated, then it's predictive, where you have governance and all that. And then if it is innovative startup, if you have a startup, you don't have a fixed setup. You try something, you get feedback, you to know whether you are going to repeat it or you are going to change it altogether. That's a form of iterative, and that's adaptive. Large enterprise transforming will be a combination of predictive and adaptive, because if you are large and you've been there, you have ways that you have kind of experimented with, and you know that it works. So you can keep replicating that whilst you are discovering new ways. So confidence grows when you stop guessing and start diagnosing. So it is not enough. It is not enough. It is important that if you want to write PMP, you need to understand basics. Don't memorize. Don't memorize. Understand, like, the hints that I'm giving you, to be able to say, okay, this is hybrid, this is adaptive, this is predictive. Predictive. If you're able to do that, 50% assurance that you will pass the exam, and then you add a bit of scenario based questions to, like, flexing your muscle. Like going to gym. If you want to lose weight, it's recommended that you should go to gym. If you register and you walk to the gym, it's 50%, or you have done 50%. Because some people would register, they won't go, or they will keep procrastinating. So that is what you understanding the different development approaches can help you accomplish. Now, exam readiness. My sessions, what I'm trying to do is to make it practical for you. I know I'm assuming all of you on the call, you've done your 35-hour training and you are preparing for the exam. So I'm assuming, and that's why I'm saying that exam readiness, what PMP exam is really testing. You can watch my previous videos in February. I've I treated what the how questions are structured for PMP and how to answer them. I think that was week 1 and 2 in February, and this is the third week. So the exam tests whether you align approach to value delivery. It's not like you are saying predictive is cost effective. So for every project, you are going to use predictive. No, they want to know whether you look at the value delivery preference of the customer, and then you come up with approach that is suitable. They want to know whether you understand what it means to protect stakeholder. Because managing project is not about you, it's about the stakeholders. So you cannot get angry at your stakeholder. You cannot say you are fed up. Is the stakeholder is problematic. As for me, I don't have time for this. I cannot tolerate this. You cannot say that to your customer. You see, so they are testing whether you protect your stakeholder trust, and then they want to know whether you reduce risk. You see, even when you identify risk, analyze, and come up with response, and then you assign them to owners so that you have this person responsible for risk A and the triggers and how to respond to it. That is a way to reduce risk, because the moment you identify the triggers, you start implementing the response. And then having the culture that you cannot identify all risk, and then you have management reserve for the risks that are unknown. And so when the risk of such occurs and becomes an issue, it's not that you are running, hey, who is going to, we need $20,000. You just go to management, and then you can reduce the impact of that risk becoming issue. Now, the issue you identified and came up with response in handling, when it happens, you respond to them. You go to your response plan in your risk management plan, and you pick, for instance, if you say that flooding is a risk has not occurred, it's something that may occur in the future. So you should know the difference. Risk is a futuristic event that may have positive or negative impact on the project objective, while issue is something that has happened now and it has negative impact on the project. So whether you identify risk or not, if something happens that is untoward towards the project, it becomes issue. But that of the risk that you identify, you had already come up with possible plans response, so you implement that. For the ones you didn't identify and it became issue, how do you address that? Is through workaround. Sometimes PMI through PMP do ask. So you have workaround and you have response. Okay. They also want to know whether you understand how to deliver incrementally when needed. In what scenario would you deliver incrementally? And then maintain governance where required. Governance is very key in predictive. All right. Now, I said that if you are answering your questions, you need to know what to eliminate. Sometimes when people finish writing exams, oh, the exam, I don't even know what PMI wants us to do. Most of the questions had two answers. And you mean, what do you want me to do? Almost all. When they say that, even if I go like, oh, really, in my head, I'm laughing because I'm remembering myself in 2011, how I felt. How come there are two answers? So which one do they want us to choose? But when you study carefully, there's always one answer, no two answers in any question. So you need to know how to eliminate. Okay? So if the scenario talks about sprint planning or iteration planning, you are seeing backlog refinement, you are seeing product owner, big O, adaptive or agile. Or we are reading the question or in a scenario, you are seeing change control board phase approval, baseline scope, it is predictive. If you are reading question and you see a bit of the first scenario talks about sprint planning, backlog refinement, product owner, and a bit of mentions change control board, phase approval, baseline scope, then it's hybrid because mentions both structured governance plus iteration. Always choose the answer that matches context. So you first need to understand the context. That's why you need to, if the question did not outrightly say in an adaptive or in an agile or in a predictive, it is your responsibility within 30 seconds to determine whether it's predictive, adaptive, or hybrid. So you need to match answer to the identified context. And then your answer must preserve value. Your job as a project manager is to deliver value. So don't pick any answer that is contradictory to that. And then your answer must maintain stakeholder alignment. Okay. I think I gave you quite a number of this in this session. Red flag triggers, things you should look out for or exam clues. If you see change control board, is predictive. If you see sprint backlog or product owner, is agile. If you see first gate approvals, is predictive. If you saw incremental releases with steering oversight, is hybrid. If you saw regulatory penalties, is predictive. If you saw frequent user demonstration, demo like what is it called? Um, if you work in an organization and they want to take a caterer or they want to change their caterer, they say, oh, they should bring sample. You have samples through in a form of demos in adaptive, and you display them during review meetings, because review meetings you have the product owner, you have the customer, you have the team, which is inclusive of the scrum master, and then the team will display, demonstrate their understanding of what they picked from the product backlog. It gives the customer the opportunity to say, yeah, 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 oh, this is how it's looking like, can we change it? Prototype. God bless you, my brother Ola. Prototype. You're in the spirit. You know. So these are the things you look out for in the question. And if you're able to do this, it will help you. And how you will know that you're able to identify these exam clues or the red flag triggers is by practicing questions. When my students practice their questions for the first time and they are getting 30%, because the pass mark for my simulator is 80%. When they are worried, I'm not worried because I expect it. As that guy said, I expected it. I expect it. But I become worried after they've attempted the simulator multiple times, or at least 20-30%, and they are still scoring low. The simulator would expose your nakedness. It will expose how you are thinking, because you don't even know your default setting. That's the truth. You don't know your default setting. So the simulator would bring it out for you. And elimination rule. Ignore stakeholder. Eliminate any option that says you should ignore stakeholder engagement or escalate prematurely. You saw problems. Okay, I don't have time. Please, let's escalate this. No. Before you escalate, unless it strictly says it is out of your control or your threshold, then you can escalate. Otherwise, you need to make an effort to solve it. Remember, you're a project manager, you are a professional, you are ethical, you are a problem solver. That's who you are. I also tell people, when you are writing exam, forget the role you are playing in your organization. Maybe in your organization you don't even have the title of a project manager, project coordinator, project lead. You don't have that title. But PMI sees you as a project manager, so you have to think as such. All right. Then any option that breaks governance structure is wrong. Any option that applies Agile in a rigid regulatory setting is wrong. Agile is never rigid. It's predictive that is rigid. Any option that apply predictive in high uncertain innovation work is wrong, because predictive is not uncertain, it's certain. That's why you are planning. That's why we say predictive is plan driven. Okay, so this is one of my favorite uh, points in the presentation. So this is where you will be answering questions. Please don't say, I'm just watching. Just try. Okay. So I would show the question. I would wait for 10 to 15 seconds whilst you drop your answers in the chat section. I have YouTube here and I have TikTok here. Okay. So just drop. Nobody is beating anybody here. All right. So, question one, read carefully. We've not gotten to question one, but read carefully, diagnose what um, environment, and then you answer. Is that okay? All right, question one. A financial services organization is implementing a new compliance reporting system. Requirements are fully defined by regulators, and deviations may result in penalties. During planning, a team member suggests using Scrum to allow flexibility. What should the project manager do? A. Transition to Agile to improve collaboration. B. Use hybrid to allow flexibility in compliance. C. Continue with predictive due to regulatory stability. D. Escalate to the sponsor for decision. Oh yeah, over to you. I see D here. Yes, I need one more person to answer so that I can move. All right, so I see C. I see multiple C's. Oh, I see Inu Brahma on the call. Good to have you here. Um, this is what I miss on Zoom, where I pause to ask you to justify your answer. The answer is C. Continue with predictive due to regulatory stability. Don't see Scrum and assume it's agile. So the reason why I see is answer regulatory penalties plus fixed requirements equals predictive. A financial services organization is implementing a new compliance reporting system. The requirements are fully defined. Fully defined, he's here, you know, and deviations may result in penalties. Hmm? So you see, question two. A company is building an internal HR portal. Requirements are unclear. Users want frequent feedback and leadership support experimentation. There are no regulatory constraints. What is the best approach? Hybrid. A. Hybrid. B. Agile. C. Predictive with rolling wave planning. D. Predictive with change control. Question two. Your answers, please. Okay. Okay, so I see C, C, B. I see B, C, B, 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 B. All right. Okay. Let me clap for those who got B. Let me clap for those who didn't choose B, that they attempted. Okay. Don't think hybrid is safer. That's okay. There's butter, there's this. Let me go for. It's building an internal portal. Requirements are unclear. This one. Users want frequent feedback and leadership support experimentation. There's nothing here that is fixed. Regulate Regulation is not even fixed, you know. So nothing in the scenario requires predictive governance. Do not introduce structure where it isn't needed. One of the challenges also is when people see question, they now introduce their own question. Like what if, no, please answer the question that you are given. Question 3. An agile project is delivering incremental releases every 2 weeks. A senior executive requests detailed documentation and phase approval before further releases. What should the project manager do first? That word first actually changes everything. A. Educate the executive on agile governance. B. Implement phase gate approvals immediately. C. Escalate the concern because management they happen, or executive, senior executive for that matter. Then D. Convert to hybrid immediately. I added immediately to it. Now tell me what the answer is. Question 3. I see A, another A. Now I see B. I see D. I like this person. So I think D. One thing is also when you are writing the exam and you don't know the answer, don't leave it blank. You can pick what you think is better than leaving it blank. Yeah, A dominates, and A is actually the answer. An agile project is delivering. So the project is in an agile environment, or the delivery methodology chosen was agile, and they are delivering incrementally every 2 weeks. Then the senior executive requests detailed documentation, which is a form of predictive, and phase approval, which is a form of predictive. He wants to turn the project. Is either he's thinking of predictive or he's thinking of hybrid. But the first line says an agile project. All right. So educate the executive on agile governance. That they know they do one like that too. Don't panic and add control that he's a senior executive. What can I do? I don't have no. Educate the person. Educate doesn't mean you bring a whiteboard and say, okay, now come. You know, you are paying me and I need to show you how things are done. That's not done. That's not what we are saying. But respectfully, you educate the person. You let the person understand why that is not done for agile methodology. So your first response is stakeholder alignment and education. You align the stakeholder to agile approach. PMI logic favors collaboration before structural change. It is after you've done this and the executive is insisting, and from your perspective, it will affect projects, you can escalate it. Okay. Question 4. A construction project has well defined blueprints and contractual penalties. Midway through execution, the client requests minor refinements to interior finishes. What should the project manager do? A. Switch to Agile. B. Process the request through formal change control. C. Adopt hybrid immediately. D. Reject the change. Question 4. I see B. I see B. Okay. Looks like B is winning. Yeah. Process the request through format change because a construction project has well-defined blueprint. That's predictive. And midway through execution, the client's request minor refinement. Don't say, oh, it's minor. Then you say, okay, you can absorb it. Let us go through change the format change control. And what do we mean by format change control? It means that you and your team as a project manager, would analyze sorry, the impact of this minor um, request on budget, on time, on risk, whether it will introduce new risk to the project, and then on quality. Then you present that to management, and then you present that to the change control board, the CCB, and then they will make decision whether to accept it or not. Okay. Then don't see refinements and assume it's agile. Stable scope plus contract means it's predictive. Changes go through formal control. And then question 5. A tech company is launching an innovative AI-based product. Leadership demands a full scope baseline before work begins to ensure cost predictability. Requirements are largely unknown. What should the project manager recommend? A. Develop full predictive baseline. B. Hybrid with heavy predictive planning. C. Agile approach with progressive elaboration. D. Escalate unrealistic expectations. What will the answer be? See, see. Okay, a tech company is launching. Let me see what is at sea. Escalate unrealistic expectations. A tech company is launching an innovative AI-based product. Leadership demands a full scope baseline before work begins to ensure cost predictability. Requirements are largely unknown. So this is a this is an adaptive project. Escalate unrealistic expectations. So when you escalate, what will you be telling management? Hmm? Please, you keep. You are like a medical doctor that um, you are telling a pregnant woman that you cannot go home because your time is due. And when I look at your health, if you go, maybe something will happen and all that. You cannot just say you are respecting the who, the whoever is asking for the leadership demands. Okay, so don't whoever made mistake to whoever chose B was just giving respect to this leadership title. And one of the things that also goes against us is our culture as African, the respect you have for leadership. It doesn't work that way. And that's why I'm saying that you attempting questions through simulator would help you tremendously to know your default setting and then correct it before it messes you up during the exam. Unknown requirement plus innovation is agile. Predictive baseline will be artificial certainty. You know. So D is the correct answer. So from what we have attempted, I came with this table: predictive versus agile versus hybrid. PMP exam logic traps. So I have dimension, I have predictive, I have agile, I have hybrid. When I mean dimension, they're like characteristics or traits or elements that you need to pay attention for. So the first one is requirements. For predictive, it is clear, stable, and approved very early at the start of the project. At the very beginning of the project, you know exactly what the project will deliver. And you're able to do that at the beginning because you identify stakeholders. Remember, one of the first things that you will do when you start project is to identify stakeholders. You identify, then you categorize the stakeholders based on their power, their influence, their interest, so that you can know who the key stakeholders are. And then you go to them to request or ask of them what they want to see in the project that will tell them that the project is successful. Those are the requirements. then you document the requirements. Remember, when you also document the requirements, you cannot deliver. No, let me change that. You may not be able to deliver all the requirements. That is why you prioritize requirements. That's where Moscow comes in. That's where Kano comes in. That's where Tuped comes in. That's where the 100 points you can use to prioritize requirements. So that is often done uh, under predictive setting. And then you have the same requirements under Agile. If the requirement is evolving, like WhatsApp, it was evolving. So, okay, you can make calls, you can create a group, you can do conference call, you now have business WhatsApp, it's evolving. It's not very clear at the beginning, you know, that will be um, adaptive. And then hybrid would have combination of both clear requirements and evolving requirements. Another dimension is risk type. Primarily, what are the type of risk that these three um, exhibits? For predictive, it's about doing it right. What you plan, it's about getting it. So when you say flooding, it means flooding is a risk that if it occurs, we will not be able to work. So we have to address it. We have to find solution. So it is doing what you plan right, risk associated with that. And then for Agile, the type of risk that is associated with Agile is based on solution or technical uncertainty. If you are here, you are managing an adaptive project, and your customer just asks you so, because it's not planned, it is assumed that the reason why customer makes the demand is to earn them competitive advantage. So you are not in control of what they may request for. So the risk that you may likely feel could be solution to the request of the customer, or the technical certainty in delivering them, in building whatever they are asking you right. Okay. Therefore, hybrid, it will be mixed of the risks that I just explained. Then, when it comes to how you handle change, for predictive, it is formal. You go through the change control board. The adaptive or agile, you go through the backlog prioritization and reprioritization. So the customer says, I want this, the product owner itemizes it. After the customer says everything he or she wants, the product owner and the customer now will prioritize whatever is in the product backlog. So if you want to see the value the project, an adaptive project, is likely going to deliver, go and look at the product backlog. That is where you will see what they are likely going to deliver. All right. And then for change handling, when it comes to hybrid, it is formal for core scope, for the aspect that is fixed, or the predictive aspect of hybrid. And then for the aspect that is adaptive, that is evolving, you know, you handle it the way you will handle the adaptive change request. Okay. So all you need to know is to understand predictive and agile or adaptive, and then you know that if you have a hybrid situation, it's a combination of these two that are there. Then when it comes to governance, for predictive, it is you have strong phase gates. If your projects are in phases, you at the end of, in fact, you first define what the phase is going to deliver. And at the end of the phase, you need to assess whether the what you planned in that phase was delivered, whether you are going to move to the next phase as you plan, or you are going to move to the next phase, the next phase in a modified way. Like you have to take some things out, or you kill it, you end it. Maybe the value, the intended value is no longer there, you kill it. So for predictive, governance is very strong. Decisions are made at the end of phases to continue as you plan, or to continue but in a modified phase, or to kill it. All right. And you also need to ascertain whether you were able to deliver what you planned you were going to deliver. All right. For agile, governance is lightweight, and you make frequent reviews. That is why the product owner is always talking to the customer, and the customer is telling them, okay, I don't want this anymore. I want this. Okay, let's move it this way. Let's move it that way. You know. And then for hybrid enterprise governance, it's a mixture of what happens in predictive and adaptive. The stakeholder engagement. For predictive, it is when you are presenting your status meeting, you've completed a milestone, then you present. For adaptive, it's continuous. You know, if your sprint or iteration is 1 week, it means after every 1 week, you'll be having contact with the stakeholders, or the customer, the product owner. If your iteration is 2 weeks, it means at least every 2 weeks there will be such interaction. And hardly, hardly would a product or a service delivered in an agile setting is refused or rejected by the client, by the customer, because the customer is constantly involved. I use flyer or artwork as example. Sometimes I want to design flyer. I don't know exactly what I want. So I call maybe someone that will design, and I say, I want a flyer. I want a flyer on Jumoke. I don't know how you are going to design it, but I want something that is warm. I want something that is not overly loud. I want something that when you look at it, you look at it again. You know, and then the person says, okay, do you have color preferences? I said, okay, I really don't have color preferences, but you try blue and red and green. Then he does the first one, say, hey, what color is this? He's not looking nice. Oh, he's looking like, it's okay. What don't you like about it? I don't like that. I don't like that. Look at where you have positioned my picture. I don't like it. He's like, why is a photograph taking the entire space? Then he goes back. Based on my feedback, he goes to restructure and say, okay, the colors are looking better, but can you work on it? It's looking like something that I like. But my picture, why have you not made it too small? So the feedback I keep giving, but it's at a point, the designer will get it and I'll go like, oh yes, this was what I asked you to do. I really love this. Oh, thank you so much. It's as a result of the continuous sprint review that I'm giving that has enabled us achieve that goal. Did I know I wanted a flyer? Yes. Because sometimes people behave as if you don't know what the team is developing. They will just deliver something and say, hey, it's a flyer. I thought it was graphic design, something like that. So, you know, I mean, vaguely what you want, but the detail that the picture will be here, you're going to use this font size, you're going to use this color, you will not know. It would evolve. Okay, some people are still answering. And then for hybrid, of course, you know that it will have both elements. Then the delivery pattern. If you have a project and the customer says, I don't mind, you can deliver. How long will it take? 9 months. You deliver at the end of the 9 months. You cannot manage that project adaptively. It has to be predictive. Okay. Single or major release, deliver it at the end. If the customer says, hey, I've taken loan and I have to start repaying, so I need value as soon as possible. Then okay, you now probably from the product backlog, and then based on the number of story points that you can complete, you pick, you deliver, then the customer has it, can start using it, in a rolling wave pattern. All right, you continue to deliver value in an incremental value, in an incremental way, you know, and then maybe you're supposed to deliver. Let me use food as example. You're supposed to deliver 100 packs to an event, and they say, oh, we have old people, we have pregnant women. So can you? You say, oh, it will take me 7 hours to complete the cooking. Say 7 hours. Oh yes, I will do it in batches. Okay, since you are doing it in batches, can you be delivering the batches 25 packs? So the first 25 packs came, they gave it to the senior citizen and the pregnant women. The next 25 batch came, they gave it to children, like that. So you are delivering your value in an incremental manner. And then for hybrid, it's a combination of both structured increments inside governance framework. Governance framework itself is predictive. All right. I think this is the last slide. So these are some logics that I'm hoping you'll be able to incorporate as you uh, plan or prepare for your exam. So I have termed some trap and I have termed some what candidates usually do, and then correct PMI thinking. I have a video on PMI or PMP mindset. If you do not have the PMP mindset, you will always be arguing with answer that one too is correct. Did you say B is answer? But C is also correct because the PMI, you have to have the PMI way of thinking. I felt PMP because unconsciously I was answering the way I was managing projects in my organization. My organization is not the examiner for PMP. And sometimes you do things and you think you are getting answers, but it may not be sustainable and it may not be the right thing. So go and watch the video on mindset. Okay. If you have watched it, watch it again. And when you watch, do leave comments. Okay. Thank you. So trap one, I mentioned it earlier. Agile is modern, so choose it. Now Agile everything, then most candidates will select Agile automatically because it's the trendy thing. But correct PMI thinking is you will make a choice based on uncertainty level. If there is no uncertainty, it is clear, it is predictive. You plan it. If the level of uncertainty is high, then it's adaptive. You cannot plan the project extensively as you would predictive. Okay. Another trap is hybrid is safest. If I make mistake, then I'll go and choose adaptive and it's supposed to be predictive. Let me just choose one that has both. So most, sorry, not most, some candidates would choose a hybrid to avoid risk by default. A PMI thinking is use hybrid only when environment is truly mixed. There has to be element of predictiveness in the scenario and element of adaptiveness in the scenario. The third trap, keyword panic. I said this one too earlier. People see Scrum and say, let me see Jalo. You need to validate governance context first. If you have a strict, stringent governance, then it is not adaptive, it is predictive. Then change. Change. How do you handle change? Any change triggers agile answer. As for change, you know that predictive is plan driven, adaptive is change driven. So when they see question that has change, they say it's adaptive or agile. In predictive, the predictive also handles change. It's just that how change is handled in predictive is different from adaptive. It goes through the change control board, which is a formal control. So you cannot just because you have seen change, just say then it is adaptive. Okay. Read and put it in the right context before you make your choice. Then executive request. Executive request, they are the ones sponsoring the project. Oh, we have to do whatever they say. So as for some candidates, they will implement CCB, that's change control board immediately. It's coming from the chief executive, it's coming from the senior management, you know. But correct PMI thinking advises that you should first align, educate, assess, then understand the context. You first need to understand why and assess. When you read any question, there's a problem, whether risk, whether change, whether quality issue, whether conflict, you need to assess. Don't assume that because they said there's conflict, then you know what has happened. Look for option that is telling you to assess or investigate so that you can understand correctly what the issue is before you start solving. Then sometimes when there's documentation request, people just jump into conclusion that it is predictive. As for adaptive, there's no documentation, which is wrong. The documentation for predictive is extensive, but adaptive or agile also does documentation. So what some candidates will do, they will switch model instantly, you know, and say, oh, it's not adaptive. Agile still documents, but appropriately. It means it's not as intense. Documentation is in adaptive or agile is not as intense as that of predictive. Then when you talk about innovation plus baseline demand, hey, choose predictive to satisfy leadership, yeah, so that we'll plan, we'll not go over budget, we'll not go over time, we'll be able to deliver. That's what some students or candidates will choose. But correct PMI thinking recommend agile due to uncertainty. You know, innovation. You have not. It's like you are treading on an uncharted path. Is agile. Why agile is agile gives room for quicker or faster adaptation. Let's say you did something and it's not working, for you to move quickly compared to predictive. So correct thinking will be PMI. I'm doing a 180 PMP mindset quotes. I think today is my day 6. So I don't know who sent me say, but I'm going to do it for 180. So be on the lookout. I post in my channel, I post on my page on LinkedIn, I post on my page on Facebook as well. The once in a while on Twitter. So follow it, it will help you. And when it comes to compliance, when people hear compliance, they go fully predictive, because we have said that predictive is involves compliance and governance. Let me play it safe, you know. But correct PMI thinking says assess if entire project or just parts requires compliance. If entire project requires compliance, then we will say is predictive. But if it's portion, then it's hybrid. All right. So that is the end of today's session. This is time for you to ask question. This is my new book that you should buy. It's 350. You there is book version that you can buy. I have someone who bought it in Nigeria already. I think she's even on the call here. And if you're in Ghana, you can get the hard copy. One of PMI Ghana members bought it, and he bought this book, bought flashcards on PMP, bought flashcards on ACP. And so I was wondering, what exam are you preparing for? And he said, oh, I got my PMP, mentioned some year that he bought this to um, keep him on track. And I've been trying to let people know that maybe because I said a practical guide uh, to project with impact, people just feel because it's PMP mastery, it is only for those writing PMP. It goes beyond that. And one of the things I love about the book are the scenarios to help explain the things in the book. So if you want a copy, please let me know. But most importantly, I would like to answer your questions. Okay. You can scan this to chat with me on WhatsApp. Or if you want PDUs, please let me know. And then I would assign the PDUs for you. And if you know anyone that wants to do any training, you scan this for them to have access to our line of trainings. We have training for construction professional, for PMP, for ACP, for risk management professional. Yes, a lot. Okay. All right. Any question, suggestion? And yes, please follow me on LinkedIn as well as on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. I'm there as Jumoke Lafenwa. My name, Jumoke Lafenwa. On X, I'm there as Jimmy B2. On TikTok, I think Jumoke Lafenwa. Yeah. And then please do follow Okay Valley Limited too on all these handles. Yes, any question for me? Is it okay for me to take it that you don't have questions so that we end today's session and see you next week, Monday, 6:30, same time here. All right. Thank you very much for joining the session. And the recording will be at Okin Valley Limited. You can always visit and watch it as well as the others that have been recorded. See you next week by God's grace. Okay. Someone is sending what now? I'm seeing a message. Okay. All right. So on that note, I say bye bye.